Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thank you very much for tuning in and continuing to follow me as I explore and share with you the wide world of pens. And yes, here's one that's very worthy of being displayed on a turntable. My pen friends and crabs are looking at the pen and going, "Whoa, good looking pen." And the crabs are saying, "Oh, we could have held it up," and that is true. But I feel that the elegance of this design warrants a different holder, and so I've used that one. So we're going to explore this pen. It's a Vazir Ivory with an amazing engraved nib. We'll talk a little bit about the engraver. We'll show you the bits and pieces and talk about the pen and how much I like it. So stay tuned for some details. My friends are saying, let's get going. So some of you that might be interested in how you would receive the pen, it comes in this nice wooden box. You slide the sleeve off. It's very nicely done. It has a dark red lacquer. And of course we have the name of the pen company there and a nice mirror-like emblem. This just pops off. And I don't know whether this is a standard thing, but mine came in this nice velvet pouch. Even if it wasn't in there, it would be nicely secured in this padded box. We slide the pen out and we'll see this beautiful ivory pen. So that's it, in case you're interested in how you receive the pen, or if you wanted to gift it. Nice looking gift. For those of you that watched the other videos I did on these Vazir pens that I recently received, you'll find a lot of common discussion points. Number one, this pen feels good in the hand, incredibly good polish, and yes, you could unscrew that top finial if you needed to do work on the clip. The designs have a lot of similarities to it, which I am impressed with, and I like, again, this kind of minimal design. No cap band, but obviously the cap is a much more of a diameter than the barrel. As we unscrew the cap, 1, 2, 2¼ turns. So it's all in that same number of turns that have been common with the other Vazir models. But this one has that amazing engraved nib, which we're going to talk a little bit about. I'll give you a link to the wet pen who did a review on a similar engraved nib from Vazir. I really like how Matthew does his videos, so hopefully if you haven't watched one of his, you'll enjoy that one. Check the link out in the description. The pen is a great size. It fits very well in the hand. Feels great. Yeah, it's a nice hourglass shaped section. We'll give you dimensions of that section. Again, classic design, and as you may wonder no more, it'll stay there but not secure, which is fine since I'm not a poster. Let's look at the bits and pieces of the pen. So what ink to put in? Well, I wanted a green ink. I know it's an ivory pen, but I wanted a green ink, so I haven't used this ink for a while. Some nice green glitter, which goes into suspension if you shake it up. And it's definitely a green ink. We'll see how it works in that ground hemp nib. The turned acrylic works well. It was easy to clean off this saturated ink from the section, and the section now is the ivory color that it was before inking. I like the nib. I like the way it feels on paper. It has a little bit of feedback, but it's a nice feedback. And this Fabriano paper has a little bit of texture to it, so it's going to provide you with more feedback than like a Rhodia or Tomo River paper. But I like it because of that. As I've mentioned a few times, it's like driving a sports car. You want to feel the road. That makes the driving experience nice, and you want to feel the nib on paper. It's a fairly wet nib. I think the nib is tuned extremely well, and I think the Wet Pen did an excellent review. There's a link to his video review in this description, but I think the nib was tuned while it was being ground, and apparently the artist who ground it is also a fountain pen enthusiast, so I'm certain that they want to make certain that nib works very, very well. And this one does. Kudos to Vazir. So here I've disassembled the Ivory as much as you would need to. And it has the same converter that all my Vazir pens have. This branded Schmidt converter. I think it's their upscale version. So this is a Jowo nib unit. You can tell by the feed. And it does unscrew, but I used what I consider to be reasonable effort, and it didn't unscrew, so I'm not going to force it. Do no harm. Here's that O-ring that sat between the barrel and the section, which I removed. When you look at the post listings, it doesn't show that O-ring, so maybe for some reason this was added to let you know that you could eyedropper the pen if you wanted to. And as with the other Vazir pens, a very solid, thick wall there. That from the machined acrylic. Incredible, nice, consistent color. And you can see inside the cap, there's a little ledge that seals up against the section. Classic design, works well. So I mentioned that Vazir makes large pens, and these three in the series that I'm reviewing are definitely large. The Ivory is the slightly longer one of the three, with the Pop coming in second and the Paradox third. Vazir, and there's Vazir here, but it doesn't have any inking in it. But they all line up with the clip where there's a clip, or as you can see on the Paradox, the design lines up when you cap them. Uncapped, they're all about the same length, a few millimeters difference, and as we talk, the posting experience is different on all three of these. Two don't post, and the Ivory does. But these are three amazing nibs in their own right. With this incredibly hand-carved hemp nib design. We have a multicolored nib here on the Vazir, and a nice dark black nib on the Pop. They're all Jowo nibs, and they all work extremely well. Excellent writers. I really appreciate the fact that Vazir upscales their nibs. And the sections are all a little bit different in these three, but all the sections are quite long, which to me facilitates the writing experience, allows you to move your fingers around as you write, which I tend to do. So there's something for everyone in these three pens. How does this Vazir Ivory compare to some of the other popular pens in our world? Well, here's an M800, and Vazir just completely dominates it. It's twice as large. It's in length and girth. Here's an M400, so we also now get to see 800 versus 400. Again, 400 is a small pen. And here's a Pilot Metropolitan. So let's do the comparison now the other way. So obviously the Jinhao 9019 comes to mind. The Vazir Ivory holds its own. It's slightly less in diameter, but it's longer. Here's a Hongdian D5, really beautiful pen. Lengthwise, it's also smaller. And then we go down to a Jinhao Centennial 100, which I think holds its own in this group, but certainly is the shortest and the thinnest of the group. Let's take off those caps and look at the business end. See, once we take off the caps, the large nib, the number 8 nib on the Jinhao 9019 certainly dominates this group, but these other 3 nibs hold their own. This is a custom ground nib, so it's not the normal two-tone nib that would be in a pen, this Jinhao pen. The D5 has about the smallest section, but it's certainly long enough. The 100 is in 3rd place. 2nd place goes to the Ivory. And obviously the biggest section here is on the Jinhao. But again, I like this, the way it's curved, the length works well in my hand. So at this point, I usually do my editorial comments, give you dimensions and pluses and minuses and a final writing sample. But before we get into that, I think we need to present the engraver of this nib, a gentleman in India. He has an Instagram account, which there's a link in the description. I strongly suggest you check it out. Here's some pictures from that Instagram site. His photography certainly is better than mine. And here's some video of his carving. I think it's just unbelievable, the hours and hours that it takes to do one nib. And the fact that you can buy a piece of artwork like this, put it in a pen, and it really works well as a writer, that's just great. It's an amazing world that we live in, this wide world of pens, that we are so fortunate to be able to enjoy. Now back to the Ivory. So let's give you the dimensions of the pen. As we mentioned, it takes 2 1/4 turns, so it's a little bit less than some of the other ones. I'll try to give you a live shot of how that nib looks. You know, the thing about photography is lights, angles, everything just changes it. And they're engraved all the way to the edge of the nib on both sides. It's just phenomenal. Of course, every nib is going to be unique because this is all hand done. They'll be similar, but you'll have a unique piece of artwork. Let's put down some more ink in our closing statements. Well, I think this sums it up. I had the pen uncapped for a very long period of time, so it was a little bit dry in the beginning. But as I wrote more, the ink flow returned to its normal level. Again, on every level. Is it inexpensive? No. But art is not inexpensive. Hand craftsmanship of both the pen and the nib. The size of the pen, the feel of the pen, all of those things contribute to the value of the pen. So hopefully your monetary budget, if you're interested, will allow you to acquire a pen like this. If not, you can just admire it in my video. So we've come to the end. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Yes, and you do hear some feedback from the nib, but that's fine. I hope this video finds everyone safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, putting down some ink. That's what's nice. So we reached the end, and we will say bye. I don't know what's next in the pipeline, but no, I'll think of something.